one of my sales reps said, well, you could do that. And I'm like, yeah, I could do that. Ever do that, Merv? And then you go, oh, what did I say? I have to do it. And I didn't know how to do that, but I figured it out because that's what entrepreneurs and leaders do. They figure it out.
Many people want to be leaders. Fewer understand what it really means to lead people well. So what separates the two? Welcome to the Lead with Purpose podcast with your host, Merv Jersak. Each week, you'll hear honest conversations with leaders who have been in the trenches and have stories to tell. They'll share their practical wisdom to help cut through the noise and get to the heart of leadership. So let's get started.
Welcome to this week's episode of Lead with Purpose podcast. I'm your host, Merv Jersak. And as always, you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, and go to my website, peoplefirstprojectmanagement.com. My guest today is Debbie Allen. Debbie, she used to be a mentor of mine, and we're still very good friends and maintain contact. Debbie's built multiple million-dollar businesses long before she ever became a globally renowned speaker. She's been extraordinary in her success, but that's not what marks, in my mind, what marks Debbie as a leader. It's how she teaches others to own their own leadership, build their confidence, and transform their careers, and I'd say from the inside out. So if you've ever wondered how entrepreneurial grit translates into everyday leadership, you're about to get a master class. So welcome, Debbie. It's been a while since we've connected, and I'm so grateful that you've come on Lead with Purpose today to share your leadership lessons with my audience.
Well, thank you, first of all, for that wonderful introduction, Merv, knowing me for all these years. I used to always ask Merv, like, why do you keep coming back to my events? Like, he would come back to the same event. He's like, because I learn something different every
Yeah.
time. And, you think that you share wisdom, like we all as leaders share so much wisdom with people, but we don't realize sometimes how impactful that is, that people need to hear it multiple times before they can get it, or you're in a different place in your business when you hear something else. And so, yeah, it's been great to see you come back with the book and the podcast now and be part of all of this.
Well, thank you, Debbie. And here's how I'd like to start today's podcast, because you are an entrepreneur's entrepreneur. How's that?
Yeah,
But
that's true.
I'd like to start at the beginning of your journey. From when I've known you, your mindset is that you built early businesses starting, I think, right out of high school with a rental
Yep.
car business.
Yep.
And then
Yep.
went on and to do different things until you become the professional speaker, author, and coach and mentor that you are today. So maybe in a couple of minutes, give us that overview, and then we'll get into the aspects of what that truly means to leadership.
Right. So you're right. Right out of high school, I mean, even before I finished graduating from high school, I would take the school bus and go to the family business. But my dad wasn't an entrepreneur growing up. He was a car salesman, so I guess I learned sales from that, and shameless self-promotion for sure. But he started out with 5 rental cars, and then it's like, hey, get the kids to run the business for you. And we went from 5 rental cars to 250 rental cars and trucks and campers, and then my dad was the true entrepreneur that wanted to start a new business about every 6 months. So some of those didn't work. The majority didn't work, but the 2 that worked were mini storage. That was another one we started and sold that to a big company called Public Storage. And that was the first $1 million sale before my age of 30. And then I thought, hey, I'll leave the family business. And then I left the family business and bought my mother's clothing store that she never made money for 6 years. And I didn't know anything about retail. And then I found my group of mentors. Back then, you couldn't hire mentors, but I found people that took me under their wing and supported me. And within 6 months, I had a buying office in New York, and I'm working with these people that were brilliant retail success stories. And I built that from 100,000 to 2.5 million in 2 years in multiple locations, and then built and sold retail stores for 15 years. And then I went, what's my next chapter? And that's how I got into speaking. And somebody at one of those trade shows says, I said, why don't they do seminars here? This is crazy. You're not teaching people to be successful. And one of my sales reps said, well, you could do that. And I'm like, yeah, I could do that. Ever do that, Merv? And then you go, oh, what did I say? I have to do it now, right? I'll fill the room, standing room only. And then that's the way I got in. I'll fill the room, standing room only, and prove that you need seminars. And I didn't know how to do that, but I figured it out because that's what entrepreneurs and leaders do. They figure it out.
So, yeah, I was just listening to that, and then I've heard that story before, but thanks for reminding me. There's already, I think, 20 leadership lessons just in your story. So, but let me ask you this. Did you ever imagine that you'd become a self-made millionaire by the age of 30?
No, especially with the doomsayers in my life. So the
Mm,
biggest doomsayers in my life and the dream stealers were my father. He didn't want me to leave the family business. And what do you know about this? And all the, the negative stuff. And so that and then my husband at the time, at the time, right? That didn't work after that, right? No support system. I won't sign for a loan for you. That was, in the 70s, and you're in a small town in Indiana, and you think, where are you going to get a loan as a woman by yourself that's married? But I did because I had the relationship as a leader that took that car rental business up, and the bankers in the area knew me, and so yeah, I got a loan and I took that fledgling business and again found mentors. I mean, I think anybody can be successful easily if they find people that are already successful and hire them as mentors or coaches. And that's what I've done through all my career. I've never attended a day of college. I've never even applied for a job. I spell that job because that terrifies me. So I have to make entrepreneurship work. But I have always, I guess my professors in life were entrepreneurs that were already successful. And I go, I don't want to be you, but I want to have the knowledge and the wisdom you have. Can you shortcut that? And I've done that through all my career, and that's why I was able to build so many different highly successful businesses in so many diverse different types of industries.
yeah. Well, I come from the corporate world and went into
Right.
entrepreneurship myself. A lot of my listeners happen to be corporate leaders or leaders in nonprofits. And so I don't want them to be scared off by the fact that you and I are talking entrepreneurship, because really it's those leadership skills that we build along the way, that resilience and all that sort of thing that has agency in anything that we do as leaders, and you've just shown that from your entrepreneurial side as well.
Well, here's the reality of corporate leaders. If you're a corporate leader and you're listening to this, pay very close attention to how entrepreneurs think. Because I take on a lot of corporate clients. I have a lot of clients that leave the corporate world, so you retire fairly early, but we are all living longer. We're all living into 90s and hundreds. Both my parents still, they're in their 90s and they're living by themselves and doing everything, and it's like that's the reality. So when we used to think about retiring, it's like maybe retire from corporate, but what's your next thing? It's probably going to be
Right.
a corporate career. And that's why I get a lot of my clients that come from the corporate and they hire me because even though they're so brilliant in what they've done and they've made so much money, they don't know entrepreneurship. And most of them are going to want to take the wisdom that they've learned of all those years in corporate and turn it into an entrepreneurial business as a consultant, or in this case, a lot of people they end up being speakers, but not necessarily want to be professional speakers, but they use the skill of speaking to get corporate clients, consulting clients after the fact. And that was with you, Merv. It's like you had the golden handcuffs, and it's like, you worked with me from like, how do I leave the golden handcuffs to create an entrepreneur, a more independent life so I can spend time with my grandkids, but I still want to work. I got a lot of living to do, and I got a lot of wisdom to keep sharing with other people.
And I did learn a lot from you. I did release those handcuffs, although I would say that the consulting engagements that came after when I hung up my shingle, weren't exactly my plan, but they were certainly lucrative. So you helped me kind of make that transition. But I think what you just said is important. It's not what you're retiring from; it's what you're retiring to, and
Yep.
having that mindset and those abilities to kind of get there, those skills that can help you with that transition, and you were able to help me with
Mhm.
that, so
Well, even people that are changing their careers, like I have a client now. He's a celebrity speaker. He's booked solid all the time, high dollar, but he's always gone. So now he's got the handcuffs he created himself
yeah,
just by being successful. And now I'm
right.
helping him get into creating his own events and doing more consulting and masterminds and other things so that he could be home more with his family. And we just launched his first event with 30 people and did almost $200,000 in a weekend. He's like, oh my gosh, that's how many speaking engagements would I've had to do. But he couldn't even think that way. And he
Yeah.
came from corporate and then and landed into speaking, and then now he's, like, just switching again. You're always Here's the thing is, as we go in business a long time, we become more wise, And how can you take all that wisdom and brilliance that you've created all over these years and just hang up a shingle and hang out? Like that's going to kill you before anything else, right? It's like you want to share the wisdom. And I'm at the legacy part of my career right now. So I have been doing live stages. I was paid professional speaker, then I did my own live stages all over the world. And now my legacy business is I do one event a year. I get clients. Those clients teach them how to do their events, and then I some of them I go and I speak and I sell for them, and some I teach them how to do the event and they do it themselves. So what I'm doing now is what I was doing. I'm now putting that wisdom onto them, and I'm creating a legacy. So what I love about what I do, and I will continue to do it as long as I can do it, is that I create more people that make a difference in the world. And I love that, they're the type of people that want to make an impact in people's lives.
You just said something that was interesting that I found also. When I was in corporate, I remember having a very, very successful project for well, it was for my state of Hawaii contract. And interestingly enough, I took that learning from that success, went into another contract on the mainland and failed. And it's interesting what you just said.
Mm.
It's things change. You can't just necessarily apply everything that you've learned in leadership or whatever to every single situation. You have to be able to be adaptable and resilient and move with the flow. And so that was an interesting lesson that you just presented there.
Yeah, and even though he's one of the top paid speakers, he keeps raising his fee. He's 15,000. He's got to go to 20,000 now because he was in a plane crash. He was you've heard of the movie Sully, the Miracle on the Hudson, and he was the last one out. He helped a lot of people, and then from that he got a lot of media attention, and then from that he started a speaking business. So now he's stuck in traveling and doing this. So here's the thing: is he came from the corporate world before that, and
Yeah.
he said, "My life didn't change the day of the plane crash. It changed after that
Hmm.
because the corporate market, the company he worked for, I won't mention this big company, but they didn't care less. They didn't care. It was like, okay, you've got another client to go to, and 2 days later, get on that plane and go make a sale. He's a sales manager. They didn't care. They didn't reach out. How are you? How is your
Wow.
family? What kind of trauma have you been through? I mean, just in a plane crash. So that made him think they don't care about me. Look how replaceable I am. I could have lived or I could have died and it didn't matter. And that's what made him leave the corporate market just because of that. And he didn't even know where that was going to lead him. And so I always say you've got to be thinking of something else. But yeah, he took his bag of tricks and what he knew in sales and corporate. And of course, he had a story about the plane crash to launch a speaking business. And now he's transforming that into more content and a live event and readjusting this. But I've got to take the corporate out of him. I got to like shake him up a little bit. I'm like, you got corporate PowerPoint slides, you got corporate talk, you have a mixed audience, so you got to be able to, it's a different kind of talk when you're a leader. I think the masterful piece of a leader, which you've learned, Merv, is you learn how to talk corporate talk and also entrepreneur talk. And it's a different mindset and it's a different wording. Like I'll have somebody say, hey, well, you need to go back and when you do these events, just ask for it to be chief of staff. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? Like, okay, corporate person would be like, well, of course, how should she not know that? Because we talk differently, we think differently. It still works the same way, but the terminology and the thought process is a little different. And I think that's the piece that my corporate clients that come to me is that they have to learn how to think like an entrepreneur, talk like an entrepreneur. And I think with an entrepreneur, the biggest difference, an entrepreneurial leader, is you got to take a risk. And
Yeah.
and that's one thing that Dave is very successful at in his business because he had to learn how to jump off of that plane into the water. And he jumped in with both feet. And I said, "You're still doing the same thing. You're jumping in with both feet and figuring it out." I said, "But that's sometimes how an entrepreneur works." So I love that.
Yeah. Well, and I would go back to his a lesson learned from his particular experience with corporate not being there for him after that is I would say that they are lacking in huge amount of emotional intelligence, and that's huge for a corporation. So I would say his success derived directly from his leadership's failures as emotionally
Exactly.
as empathetic people, right? So
Because as you know, they didn't put people first at all. It was last. Just get on a plane and go. and
Yeah.
he just didn't even see it till that happened.
Yeah.
And there was well, I won't even tell the rest of that story because you'll have him on your podcast. I'll connect you to him because the story is very impactful, and I think for leadership lessons that he's got are huge. Everybody comes from a different level of where you're at, whether but the main part is what we're talking about here is that we have to learn how to continually transform our business as we age, as we grow, as we transform, and we need to take our wisdom and keep learning. And once we stop learning as a leader, it's like what that's what juices us up. And that's the thing that Dave said to me. He goes, "Well, if I don't speak as much and I'm not out there as much, where am I going to get my juice?" And I knew exactly what he meant by that, like that high. And you just get it in a different way. As a leader, you get your high by seeing other people thrive. I get the high now by seeing my clients, do these events and being successful as speakers. And I sit there like a proud mama and go, "Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so delighted in what they're doing. This is amazing."
I've met some of those as well. By the way, it wasn't that long ago. Well, I guess it's been a couple years now that you finished your book, Success is Easy. And a lot of what you just talked about, you mentioned in your book. And I guess, how do you challenge the idea that people think that success must be hard? In your mind, what are the top mindset shifts that you tell leaders that they need to make to adopt that success is easy mentality?
Well, I sold the idea to Entrepreneurial Magazine, and that was like my dream publisher because when a
Yeah.
publisher that you're Entrepreneur Magazine, when you're an entrepreneur, it's a pretty cool thing. So that was a great publishing deal I got. And they liked the idea because it was a twist on everything. And it is. Everybody thinks success is hard, but I really believe that success was easy for me because I've done so many different businesses. And yeah, it wasn't the hurdles and all the other stuff. You go through a lot of that stuff. There's no guaranteed paycheck. But the thing is, there's mentors now everywhere. Like there's mentors and coaches that could just take you and go that much faster. It's hiring the right ones that
Yeah.
truly have your back and are not just taking your money, that really care about you. Like, Merv, I've always called you my business family. And it's like, you're my brother. And it's like, I'm taking care of you. Something happens to you, I got your back, right? You want somebody like that as a mentor or a coach that really takes you. And then you're going to go 3 to 5 years ahead. And so, yes, it was easier for me as I hired all of those people because trying to figure it out on your own and try to think, oh, I'm going to be cheap. I'm not going to invest. Even 100 grand. I have programs at 100 grand now. I don't take a lot of clients at 100 grand because it's a lot of personal work for me. But it's like, where do you even start a business? 100 grand, and where you can make 100 grand your first year. I mean,
Yeah.
you look at a franchise, how much franchises are, and what we can make in a coaching and a speaking business is so much more than that. So, a lot of that is just, coming from, I think as you work with less people, what I do now is I work with less people to charge a lot more money because they have access to me. But again, I have so much more wisdom. We're paying for that wisdom, and I paid for that wisdom for mentors and coaches all my life. I want to learn this. I want to learn this. And so I think we're in a much better place. Like you think many, many years ago where we didn't have those shortcuts and all the knowledge that we have online that we have now that we can learn, and you can even buy a course and absorb yourself in it and learn things, and cut all the shortcuts. So yes, I do believe it's so much easier than it ever was before. But again, the path is easier if you follow someone's path and you listen and you're coachable. That's really key because
Yeah.
that's your leader, is your coach or your mentor. And the other part is you got to get this straight, because if you're going to sabotage yourself with self-doubt, no matter what somebody teaches you, you're not going to learn it. You'll sabotage it and you'll fail every single time. So if somebody comes to me and they say, I have imposter syndrome, I really have a problem getting out there and putting myself out there. I'm like, I won't even work with them because I
Mhm.
don't believe in it. I believe you think you have it, but I don't believe it. So
Yeah.
if you believe you have it, then you have it, and you're not coachable.
Yeah.
So there's a whole process now to work with me. It's like you either come to my event, I have a conversation with you one on one, and I work with you, and I know that you have, like you said, a leadership and the passion, and I really see that you're smart enough to kind of do this, and you have the passion and excitement to do it, or someone like yourself refers me to a client, and that's the only way you even get to me now. Because as we go to that next phase as leaders, you don't have to work harder anymore. We've been through that part, and
Yeah.
we've worked hard. Now I work less and I make more because I take on the best people. And I think that's another great lesson of leadership. as you gain that wisdom, as you gain that respect in what you've done, it gets easier and easier.
But you've had to spend the time in the trenches, and I know you
Yep.
have, so
Yes.
one of the things that, I always admired about you, Debbie, was the fact that you are a great communicator, and in my mind, leaders need to be great communicators. So what do you think are some of the communication habits that separate, say, the average leader from those who truly inspire their teams or those around them?
Well, I think, sometimes I over communicate because I'd rather be over communicated than just second guess.
Yeah,
Or, I think with some of the leaders, they don't want to say things. I've had a few things working with leaders recently that it's like, they go, "Do you want the bad news first or the good news?" I'm like, "I want the bad news. I'm a solution-oriented person. Let's just get that over with, right?
yeah,
We can celebrate the good news later." And it's like, "Well, there wasn't as many people as I told you there would be here," or what. I'm like, "Why don't you just communicate that?" I'm like, I can handle that. I said, "Well, hey, the people that are gonna be here are gonna get twice as much information from me then because they're gonna, it's fine. Just why are you holding back? Why are you afraid?" They don't say what they're afraid of saying. You know me, Merv. I have no problem telling it like it is.
yeah.
But the thing is, you always going to get the truth from me, and you're always going to know where you stand with me. Nobody's going to, mess around. And also, I'm a real giver, and I've been taken advantage because when you're a real giver, you have people that try and take from you, and I've had a lot of bad, business relationships because sometimes it takes me a while to see it because especially when they're good at hiding it to get what they want, they kind of hang on for a while and take advantage of you. So I think as we get older too, and we have less time, we protect our time and create more barriers around that. But the people that are around me always know, and they always know I'm a straightforward person. And I believe that if you are a strong communicator like I am, some people say, "Oh, that person can intimidate me." Well, if I intimidate you, that's you. That's not me.
Yeah.
I think if you're intimidating somebody, then you're doing it right. Because if you really, I really care about people. My heart is always in it, just like you, Merv. It's always people first, right? And when I come to something, I might be blunt, I might be to the point, but it's coming from love. I had a gentleman who I really admire, really like him, and he came to me and he said, he was at this event and he had emceed and he just was it was bad. It was bad. And he said, well, he goes, "That was the first time I emceed. How do you think I did?" And I said, "Do you really want me to tell you the truth? Because I will tell you the truth." But I said, I'm giving you the warning sign first." He goes, "Well, of course I want you to tell me the truth." I said, "Well, the people in the front row got a shower, because you're a little in their faces, it's like, and, his wife kind of did one of these, I said, if that's something you want to do, I can help you, get better at communicating with
Yeah.
that, but you don't learn unless you ask, but, I think that's just being honest versus people that try and skirt around the issue or take advantage of you. Also, one person I worked with this year, it's like terrible communication skills because they had listened to too many different people and there was just constant changes and constant changes. And then the team felt very disrespected because, things got changed and they weren't communicated to. It's like over communicating is better than holding back on communication and being totally honest, you know, and if it's going to be a little hurtful, just warn them ahead of time.
Well, what you said a lot in that little part, but in that, soliloquy, but what I got from that, from a leadership perspective, you truly have to be both. You said blunt, and I think blunt's a good word, but I think you have to be straightforward, and that's.
Mhm.
But at the same time, and you said with love, there's that empathetic side. So you have to.
Yep.
Leader can't be mamby-pamby, is in my mind. You have to be a leader. You have to be out there and resilient and showing that you really know how to lead people.
Yeah, you can't say yes to everybody just because, "Oh, I'm their friend and I wanna say yes." Well, did you even run that by? The concept, is that gonna work? Like, why
Yeah.
are you you know, and then if because I have one right now, he's saying yes to too many things, and I said, "I know you have a problem going back and saying no because you're a very loyal person, I really respect that." I said, "So instead of going back and saying, 'No, I don't wanna do that with you, I don't wanna work with you,' or 'That's not gonna work,' how about right now, at this time, it's not going to work because we need to go back, systemize things a little bit better. And then when we do work together, it's going to be even a better situation for us. And I think people do respect that more than if you're just skirting around it because you don't want to say no to somebody.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, as we wind down, are you ready for some what I like to call rapid fire, some quick Q&A?
Oh, I love it. Yes.
So, let me ask you this first. What's your go-to morning ritual when you know that you
Go to
need to
morning
show up
ritual
strong
is
for a big talk?
oh, when I'm on for a big talk. Okay,
Yeah,
not just like average day. My average
yeah.
day is hanging with my dog and coffee.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
heard Ruby. I heard Ruby in the background.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Sorry about that. Yeah. So, getting ready to go on stage, morning ritual is, again, it goes back to what you think of, Merv, for people first. It's never about me when I go on stage, or to be the leader in front of an audience. It's about what wisdom can I share with them today? How can I really connect with them? And that first couple minutes is the most powerful thing. It's not about memorizing. It's about where can I touch them with my head and my heart from the very beginning, and then also connect with them. One of the events I recently, because now I MC events and sell at events as well, is that one event I did, she didn't even recognize the audience, and then we were already after lunch, and so I go back on, and I'm like, I have to, finally I get on there for MC. I'm like, I recognize the audience. Thank you for coming because it doesn't matter. We wouldn't be here today if you didn't show up. You're here, and where did you come from? And letting them talk and letting them be recognized. So many people just think that speaking is a talking head, but you have to recognize and embrace the audience from the beginning. Then the rest is just easy. They're there for you.
Yeah. So here's another one. What's one book besides Success is Easy? What's one book that you think every business leader should read?
Well, one of the things I learned in a family business growing up was to, focus, and being focused in business is like if you got too many things going, you can't be good in anything. Focus, go deep in it. So many years ago, I read Jack Canfield's book, The Power of Focus. So I think that's like a key thing. Because again, if a leader's all over the place, the team's all over the place. If they're focused and really clear on their direction, what they want to do is achieve as their goal, and then why each person wants to buy into that and listen to them so they buy into that same goals and they understand that we really have a powerful team. So focus has always been number one. And I used to throw out those squirrels in my,
Yeah.
they weren't real squirrels. No, no squirrels were hurt in the process, but I had these little stuffed animals, and it was all the whole story about bringing in the word of focus is that, I would have the squirrels on the slide and everybody scream and yell and catch the squirrels. And but it all tied back to that lesson of you got to stay focused.
Yeah. I remember those squirrels because I got one.
I know,
And,
sorry.
and then I think the housekeeper may have decided that it was hers because I lost
Yeah,
my squirrel.
yeah, your computer, all your expensive technologies there, they don't touch that. They steal the squirrel
Yeah.
with the highly paid expert workshop T-shirt on it. That's so funny.
So
And then we auctioned one off for $200 once because anyway, it's a charity, and then we didn't have any more squirrels left. So yeah,
there you go.
so squirrels and focus. The squirrels don't focus; they're kind of
Right.
distracted. So that's don't be a squirrel. That's called squirrel syndrome.
Yeah. So here's a question. If you could go back and give your 20-something, 20-year-old something per self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't work in a family business. No.
Yeah, that's
No, I
good.
really learned a lot of lessons. It was really challenging, but I learned a ton of lessons there. That's a really good question. Um, I was pretty independent there. I'd say more people should be thrown into the fire in their 20s and do what I did. I'm really glad that I got thrown into the fire with the family business. Had to learn really tough. Tough business at such a young age. When I look at it and I think, the courage I have and the things that I've done, I just don't even doubt like fear and just jump in and do stuff. It started in my 20s. I wish every person in their 20s could have the kind of lessons I had that just like throw it at you, figure it out. You don't have any other options. Like, especially this, younger generation now. It's like they don't even waking up till they're in the 30s, right? It's like,
Yeah.
man, by the time I was 30, that's how I was a self-made millionaire by 30, because in
Yeah.
my 20s, I had a master class on surviving business.
Well, you were operating without a net for a long time, and I think I think some of us, as we grow in our leadership, even within corporate or even within nonprofit, you have to be able to at some point take those risk-making decisions and just go with them.
Yeah.
I have one more for you, Debbie. And if you can talk about this, that's good. If you can't, you can tell me that and I'll wipe it from this podcast.
Okay.
But you told a story once, and I was trying to remember about how you were invited on the Howard Stern show. Are you allowed to talk about that?
Yeah, well, that's when my book Confessions of Shameless Self-Promoters came out. Yeah, love the title. I knew it was
Yeah.
so good when I had it. I'm like, I didn't even want to share it with anybody. It was so good. And I learned that in business because again, any ideas, you have an idea. If you don't know how to promote yourself, you're not gonna you got to sell yourself and your ideas. But there's a way of doing that that's professional and then, I call it shameless, or shameful. We don't want to do the shameful way. So Howard's a little shameful. So I had the book marketed and I was getting all this media attention. I was on all these radio shows back then. I got a call from Casey Armstrong, the Howard Stern show, and he's like, "I'd like to have you on the show." And I'm thinking one of my friends are goofing around, and that's when he was just like, that was before serious. That was way back in the day, right? The real crazy Howard.
Yeah.
And I said, no, he's going to beat me up. And he's like, oh, no, no. And so part of me going to believe this, right? And I had about a month to prepare. So I actually knew somebody else that was a speaker from National Speakers that had been on his show. And I said, would you coach me? Can I call you every week for a month? Because I'm on the show in a month. And so he coached me and he says, not like another radio show. You got to go after him. It's like, you're not like winning him over. It's like, you got to like attack him. And he likes that. That's how you earn respect. So he's like, well, I'm not shameless. And he goes, I don't have t-shirts and mugs and all this stuff like all these other people. I don't promote myself like that. I said, Howard, you are shamelessly successful because you're brilliant at marketing. And here's the thing. I saw your movie Private Parts and I saw that you were getting fired from job after job. You had a wife, you had a child on the way. I said that I respect from you that you hung in there. Even if people believe what you're talking about or not, I said that I did. So then I could just feel like his head pumping up with ego, right?
Mhm.
And then I said I had to slap him down because it's like, you don't want to pump up his ego. So then I said, but I don't respect how you degrade women. And it was like,
Oh.
and then he respected me because I stood up to him and he's like, hey, you got some great stories in the book. Tell me some stories. And this is great. I think everybody should be, shameless and promote themselves. And then everybody should go out and buy this book. And he promoted it on air and went to Amazon bestseller in 1 hour, like,
Excellent.
because I
You know,
beat
I
him
think
up.
I think I'm gonna switch I think I'm gonna switch my podcast and only invite women guests because, yeah, I had a guest on yesterday, Charlotte Frost, a lawyer, and she stood up to a judge who didn't respect women very much, and she stood up and he changed his ruling as a result of her standing up for the rules. So yeah, I
Well, yeah,
love
yeah,
you.
and that's even in leadership. Like, how do you go against the norm? You have to continually stand up for yourself, and I had to do that even early on in business as a leader. Here I'm 20 something years old, and I'm turning people down that can't rent cars, that are in drug wars. I mean, I learned to be tough, and I think that a lot of people when you show up and you're like, oh, you're cute, you're in your 20s, or you're showing up and you're blonde, you're a woman, like you don't have that respect. You have to like stand up for yourself, and it's like it's not being bitchy. It's just like, hey, I'm just going to speak my truth. And I think if I wasn't coached, I probably would have been too nice, and then he would have beat me up. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I mean, clothes would have been coming off, and who knows what. I don't know.
Yeah.
That'd have been shameful.
Then you'd have had to write another book. That's
Yeah,
shameful.
right. Exactly.
Well, Debbie, this has truly been a rich experience. From my perspective, your entrepreneurial story absolutely translates so powerfully into practical leadership skills, especially for people who are working inside organizations. They don't have to be afraid of anything that you taught us today. And so that's why this particular conversation, I think, from my perspective, truly matters. So,
Thank you.
to everyone listening, leadership isn't about waiting for permission or waiting for that next title. It's about taking ownership. And as Debbie showed today, by staying curious and showing up with a mindset of someone who wants to make things better. So, Debbie, thank you for your experience, your honesty, your wisdom, everything that you shared with us today.
Yeah, and if your listeners want to find me, and if you want to learn more about what I do, I'm super easy to find. Debbie Allen was like you see Debbie Allen .com. And you can follow my free offers on there. And I have an event page. It shows where I'm speaking at, all kinds of things on there. So would
Perfect.
love to meet you in person someday as well.
And your books are on your website as well, right?
Everything.
Good. Well, again, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And for those of you who are in our audience, keep leading with purpose, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks again.
If today's conversation added value, make sure you subscribe. And if this episode resonated, please leave a quick review to help other leaders discover the show. And remember, leadership works best when you put people first. Let's lead with purpose, together.